Before we start another episode of Newsflash, we have these announcements for you, ladies and gentlemen. The spring season is here, and we have a lot of fun stuff to tell you. Here's a look at what's to come in spring of 2019. First, what you're hearing now. Newsflash is back Sundays and Thursdays to continue SDRN's history of providing you with top-notch progressive analysis of the news. Global will produce 2 more episodes this spring about nationalism and the Cold War all the way to the modern day. Finally, a new series is coming to SWRN Saturday, April 13th, and every Saturday this spring after. The List, where we're going to be talking about everything worth experiencing in the world of entertainment every Saturday. Finally, The Wake Up will be off the air for this season only, and For the Win has ended. The new lineup is going to be taking effect April 15th. All right, that's what you got to know for spring 2019 on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. Now, let's start Newsflash. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show today. On the show, Kirstjen Nielsen, however you say her name. Well, we don't have to be saying it much longer because she has resigned / been fired as Trump's Homeland Security Secretary. We're going to get the reaction of from that James Stanley about that and more big news across the day, including tax return fights. We're talking about Benjamin Netanyahu and his new election and possibly some other 2020 discussions as well. We'll have a fun new Newsflash, that's for sure, coming to you today live on this Sunday evening. And by the way, for those of you who are wondering, the Wake Up's not off the air yet. We still do have one final week before we take the spring, take a little vacation in the spring, and pick it up in the future. So first of all, James, thank you so much for joining us. And what's your reaction to the new SWRN Spring 2019 lineup?
Pretty eager actually to see about the new show you're talking about, The List.
Yeah.
Your Saturday show.
I kind of want to do that for a long time because we're going to be first starting with Game of Thrones because I just finished watching that and it's obviously an incredible show. A lot of people have watched that along with me. I don't know. Have you or no?
No, haven't actually watched that show yet, but probably will start looking at it.
Yeah. So the best thing is April 13th is going to be the first episode of the show, and then April 14th is going to be season 8 premiere episode, so it kind of works out perfectly there. Yeah, but it's definitely going to be exciting for you upcoming couple of days. So first of all, first order of business that we have to get to off the top of the news here, Kirstjen Nielsen, the Homeland Security Secretary, resigned on Sunday after meeting with President Donald Trump and a tumultuous tenure in charge of the Border Security Agency that's made of the target of the president's criticism, saying, quote, "I have determined that it's the right time for me to step aside. I hope the next secretary will have the support of Congress and the courts in fixing the laws which have impeded our ability to fully secure the America's borders and which have contributed to discord in our nation's discord in our nation's discourse," she said, not tenure. But first of all, she's done a lot of pretty awful things in the minds of many sane people. How will you be remembering Kirstjen Nielsen?
Oh boy, I'll probably be remembering her as someone who probably changed the whole Homeland Security for forever, honestly, to tell you the truth. I think I'll most remember her, though, for in the restaurant when she was getting harassed by the people and she was in the Mexican restaurant and she was just like...
After she separated the families.
That as well, but then she also falsely said that she was getting attacked by the people in the restaurant. They had a video and she was just sitting there and they were just verbally harassing her. That I thought was pretty funny. But I probably would most remember her as well for the thing with the children on the border, but also her stance that she thought that a wall would be more important than putting manpower in between ports of entry. We all know that the wall won't work. It's going to be feasibly nonsense. It's not going to work. the amount of money we're going to be spending on that wall, we could be spending on hiring more border patrol officers and putting them along the border, because human power is what scares people away. Putting a big wall is not going to scare people away. It's just going to get people to get ladders and just go over it. That's a ladder. A wall won't scare people off. People, if they see border patrol officers on the other side of the border, that's when they get scared off from coming into the country. And
well,
she was like,
a lot of things that
that's
Trump is like the most concerned about is, or pretends to be really the most concerned about. Well, I think it's like something deeper. Like, first of all, he says, I'm concerned about the drugs they're coming through, and the fact that they're bringing crime, which like every evidence piece showed that they're not bringing that much crime compared to the average citizen. Like, sure, there is every occasional like murder committed by someone who happens to be a legal immigrant, but there's also tons of heinous murders committed by normal people that don't get publicized because they actually live here. So it's kind of a dumb kind of like perpetration that's been made to make immigrants who normally do well seem to be in a better light. But yeah, he mostly hates them, I think, because they're it helps rally his base. It helps him get elected, and his base hates them because they're kind of like another foreign force he thinks is gonna be against them. But like oftentimes, I feel like people, if they're put together, this may be like overly idealistic, but like if people who are kind of down and out on their luck are put together, they just want to work together. For example, there's a story I heard in like this Alabama factory, like a bunch of like, you know, southern white like Republican type people work in this chicken factory for such a long time, and then all of a sudden these migrants come in from like south of the border, and people are like, you think it's going to be an awful scenario, there's going to be tons of like violence and stuff like that, or just chaos. But no, I mean, it actually ended up really working well, and the situation's still working to this day, which kind of proves the point that it's kind of what I was thinking of when I said that, like people, kind of working class people can really get along and to kind of find harmony over bonds that kind of go past what differences their race may provide them. But like, if he really wants to solve the problems of drugs and crime, like, we first have to, in my opinion, look to the opioid crisis, which is killing an insane amount of people. And second of all, we have the what's it called? The ports of entry, which Trump has shown, again, no interest in securing, and that's where most of the drugs come through.
Oh yeah. And he actually blew off the report that showed that almost 90% of all the drugs come through. He said that 90% of the drugs come across the border, when a report actually showed that roughly, like illegally in between ports of entry, when actually the majority of the drugs were coming through ports of entry and through air travel. He blindsided that. He said, oh yeah, no, they're 92%, I think was the number he said, that they're all coming through in between ports of entry, and they're just running across the border, and they're bringing all their drugs across with them. I think it was quite interesting that he actually blindsided the statistic that they actually had, and he just made it like seem like it was a situation that wasn't actually occurring. And it was funny enough, because during the shutdown, the TSA was actually greatly affected during it, but he really honestly didn't really care that much. And so the TSA is basically the last barrier to getting into this country, and he just kind of like said, that's all right. And that's something that probably startled me the most, but honestly kind of was a bit shocking as well, because he seems like a person who kind of like wouldn't be doing like allowing people to come into this country, but he made it seem like he was A-okay with it. Yeah,
it's definitely very interesting, and kind of interesting as well is to go to like the politics behind this. It's like it was kind of unusual because the Department of Homeland Security currently does not have a deputy secretary who would normally be taking the reins, but the president has said in a tweet that Kevin McAleenan, who's the commissioner of the Customs and Border Patrol, would take over as the acting replacement for Mrs. Nielsen. The Times reports, who became the sixth secretary to lead the agency in 2017. Among possible replacements for Nielsen is long term is Ken Cuccinelli, who's a former attorney general who is a favorite among conservative activists and who fits the profile that Trump wants the next Homeland Security Secretary to have, people familiar with discussions said. So, yeah, do you know anything about Ken Cuccinelli?
I actually never heard of him before. Ken Cuccinelli, the former Virginia Attorney General, I have heard his name before mentioned, because he actually was mentioned before Kirstjen Nielsen was officially made the Homeland Security supervisor. he was actually on the list for the original one, but I'm not really that shocked that he hired him. I thought that he would have hired Chris Goback because
Uh,
Trump really liked that guy. He was from Kansas. I mean, he was a train wreck. I mean, look, he lost in a Republican state to a Democrat who wasn't even too crazy. I mean, she actually,
she was pretty
Lara,
progressive, I think.
Laura Kelly, she had
Governor of
some of the
Kansas. Yeah.
progressive views, but a lot of her views came. She honestly, it was kind of funny because sometimes she was like, "Yeah, I'm open to change for my platform," and that's kind of what Chris Kobeck attacked her most for. But it kind of came back and hit him hard when he actually lost the election in a pretty red state. But Ken Cuccinelli, I'm actually quite shocked that he chose him over Chris Kobeck because Chris Kobeck seemed like he was begging to become Homeland Security advisor because he kept on appearing on, Fox News saying about
Yeah.
illegal immigration and all this other stuff. But Ken, I think is going to be similar like Chris. I don't think that he's going to be anything different. He was only Attorney General for one term anyway, so it seems like the people there didn't really like him too much. Uh, Actually, he lost to Terry. He won the Republican Party gubernatorial nomination, but he actually lost to Terry McAuliffe in the 2013 gubernatorial election. So it seems like
Uh,
the people there didn't really like him that much. And
yeah,
Terry
because
McAuliffe is not any sort of really. He's a very strange Democrat.
he's very
He said he
conservative.
support Hillary. Yeah, he's very. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
He's
He,
also
he
he's
like
not a very like he's a money guy. He's definitely like he helped like raise money from like big donors for Obama, for Hillary, for all those Democrats.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not really a Democrat. I would say I would like that at all. I don't really care for him that much. He's like a Michael Bloomberg, exactly like him. That's who I think of him as.
Interesting. Yeah. I never thought about it that way. So yeah, bring it back to Nielsen here. She's been pressed by Trump to be more aggressive in stemming the influx of migrant crossings at the border. So that's what she wants to do, and she's been battling back suspicion from the president, even as he told people how much he liked how she performed on television and enjoyed dealing with it personally. He was initially skeptical because of her previous service with George W. Bush and the George W. Bush administration, and then because she was close to John Kelly, who was the president's former chief of staff. The president berated Nielsen regularly, calling her at home earlier in the mornings to demand that she take action to stop migrants from entering the country. Because, as you know, Trump like never goes to bed. And he just calls his poor aides to be like, do something at the border. After he watches like a Judge Janine episode at like 2 a.m, it's gotta suck.
He probably does though.
Yeah,
That's all he watches, Fox.
yeah. She repeatedly noted that limitations imposed on her department by those pesky things about like federal laws, court settlements, and international obligations. Those responses only infuriated Trump even more. The president's fury erupted at the spring of 2018 as Nielsen hesitated for weeks about whether to sign a memo ordering the routine separation of migrant children from their families so that their parents could be detained. In a cabinet meeting surrounded by her peers, Trump lambasted her repeatedly, leading her to draft a resignation letter and telling colleagues that there was no reason for her to leave the department any longer. By the end of the week, she'd reconsidered and remained in her position, an increasingly fierce supporter of his policies, including family separations. Trump and Stephen Miller, his top immigration advisor's awful person, have blamed privately, but regularly complained about Nielsen. They blamed her for a rise of immigrants coming to the United States and not finding more creative ways to secure the border. So yeah, she's the person who totally went to bat for President Trump to defend this immigration policy, and she's like, nope, not good enough. We need someone who's like, what? Like, this is apparently, it's not good enough for someone who's going to put her career on the line for this immigration policy and be like, yeah, I'm going all out for this. Instead, like it's pretty crazy to me. Like, I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, no, I think that it's pretty crazy, honestly, to tell you the truth. A lot of the things that she said, and even what Trump was saying. I remember when John Kelly was actually chief of staff, and they repeatedly had arguments over the family separation at the border. And part of the reason why I think that John Kelly actually resigned was because of the fact that they couldn't get anything agreement on the border. Now, I would rather trust John Kelly over some guy like Trump who doesn't know anything. Kelly was the man who actually was recommending to Trump that he not separate families, and that he also, John Kelly said that it wouldn't be feasible to have a wall along the border in many portions, which is, I think, one of the reasons why he got fired from his Homeland Security job and moved over to Chief of Staff. But I think the other reason why he resigned was because that Trump was pressuring him as well to pressure the staff in his administration as well about a wall that he didn't even really support. Now, I'm not saying that John Clay was an amazing guy.